Okay, if you're watching this video, it means your motor mount on your Mazda 3, your Mazda 5, I think maybe even Mazda 6, but definitely the 3 and the 5 on the passenger side is busted, and you want to know why. Well, let's see if we can see some clues here. Here's the old engine mount, and as you can see, the seal is broken here, and you can see right in, and you'll see the area where the oil used to reside is all gone. In addition, you'll see that it is completely separated from itself. No, that's dead. But I said I'd tell you why. And here's your big clue here, the smoking gun. And if you know anything, you won't be surprised by this. Let's see what kind of cutesy letters we see here. What does that say? There's some letters here, and I'll tell you what they say. They're in cursive, and they say fomoco, which is a cutesy way of saying Ford Motor Company. So the Ford junk in your Mazda is the reason why your Mazda breaks. Just like a dog outside, it comes inside, you have to inspect it for fleas. Well, these days you have to inspect your Mazda for Ford fleas, as I like to say. Anyway, here's the new part. You have to bend it over the bracket with these tabs here. Old one comes off by bending these tabs, which sit here and bend underneath. You'll see when you take it off. The bottom of the mount sits here, and obviously this bracket is what mounts to the frame of the car itself, and this is obviously what the engine attaches to. And the bottom of that is just sitting on that. So anyway, I'm not going to ramble on and on and on and on, but it's Ford junk in your Mazda. So there it is. The new one over here is got a seal on it. It's soft because it's filled, I'm assuming, with oil. So be careful you don't rip that or anything when you go to put it in. And obviously it's also not split where it counts here. And as you can see, they kind of help you with one tab being bent. And you got to bend the other side. The gauge of metal is not that thick, and you should be able to bang it with a hammer. If you want to try a hydraulic crimpers or a press or something you got laying around, go for it. The metal looks thicker because it's rubber coated, but honestly, if you look close, see the gauge of that metal. Put my poker on it. It's hard to show up on video because there's so much rubber on it, but it's about the thickness. Sorry, it's hard to see that, but it's the thickness of the tip here of this tool. It's not all this black stuff. It's a pretty thin gauge metal, so you can bang it and crimp it around. And it sits. There's no way, even if you don't crimp it, that it could fall off the mount or the engine can fall out, because even if this was just sitting in there, the engine would have to slide that way or this way to fall out. It's just not happening. So don't worry about that. They sell these complete as one unit. You can do that route if you want. Save a few bucks if you do that, because really this is the only part that needs to be replaced right here. And don't be afraid of them tabs. You know, just bend them around and you'll be okay. As far as aftermarket versus factory, I'm sure if you order a factory part, you'll get a Ford Motor Company part. And this mount, I'm sure, is from Ford's crap bin parts pile left over from the 80s, left over from a 1983 Mustang. And that's part of the cahoots with Mazda and Ford. It's been going on since the early 80s. These newer Mazdas, whatever, 2004 up until probably 2013, they had this sweetheart deal where they take their, Mazda agrees to take parts from Ford's junk bins. When they designed cars back in the day, meaning the 80s, Ford, before they got involved with Mazda, most of the cars assembled by parts. And of course they want to make all these cars out of the same parts, so that's what they did, and they stockpiled a bunch of parts, but then of course they didn't sell all the Fords that they want to, so they have all these Ford parts left over. So then they call Mazda, who they notice is doing awesome, bringing in these Japanese cars, and say, hey, let's make a deal. We got a bunch of leftover parts. Can we throw them in your car? But you have the good Japanese engines, but we have all the parts, and this way you don't have to pay for parts, and let's make a deal. So anyway, that's how it went. That's their business, not mine, but that's how it went. And that's how and why you find all these Ford leftover crappy parts in your newer Mazda vehicles. The new Mazda vehicles, I'm sure, are 100% Japanese, but I'm not 100% certain on that. So as far as getting a genuine Mazda part, it's not going to not make a difference, because if you get a genuine Mazda engine mount, it's also going to be Ford junk. This aftermarket is a made in China part. Not that that means anything, because Ford could have made this in China. It's just, you get what I'm saying. It's an old school Ford design that's meant to fail in 30, 50,000 miles, because that's how Ford rolls. That's how they do. They invented planned obsolescence. They went around and said, our cars are lasting too long. Let's find parts that last forever and find ways to make them break in half the time, quarter of the time, double the time, whatever you want. And that's what they pioneered. Planned obsolescence, which is part of the world economy today. So in order to circumvent that, you got to be aware of what's what and what's going on. And this is definitely a planned obsolescence part. Similar mounts on Japanese vehicles can last the life of the, and I don't want to say the life of the vehicle, that's like a cliche term, but let's say 150, 200,000 miles. This was probably shot at 50,000 miles. Okay? It's way over 50 now, but it was originally probably shot way long ago. So if you look at your Toyotas with genuine Japanese parts, usually made by Nissan or Nissan and Nippon Denso, they last 150,000 miles. The rubber parts, the mounts, easily. So there you have it. So in a nutshell, replace your Ford crap. Doesn't matter that you go with a Mazda genuine part, because it's really going to be a Ford part, and the design itself is meant to not last. I say take a risk on an aftermarket part, aftermarket mount, because it can't be any worse than a genuine part, because the genuine design is genuinely poor and genuinely Ford. And one last thing before I wrap it up. That is an engine mount. That is an engine mount bracket. They're two separate pieces. They're sold either together or separately, but there's only one mount and one bracket. When they come together, it's a mount and a bracket assembly. Just getting technical with you. Good day.